Welcome and good evening to everyone. Thank you for joining us for our monthly membership meetup. We appreciate your time. This evening, we have two people that I don't really think need to be introduced, but they are just incredible Rotarians. They're both the immediate past Rotary coordinators for Zone 28 and 32. They are the current action champions for our two paired zones, and they are just amazing human beings and incredible Rotarians. Doug Logan and Herb Klops are dedicated to membership and to the action plan and to anything that we can do to grow our organization and do the good work that our organization does. So I will turn it over to Doug and Herb, who will be talking about continuity and the importance of that.
So what we're going to do is talk at you for a few minutes and then open it up for questions, comments, challenges, and hopefully we'll have a good conversation about this, because continuity in clubs is a real challenge. But it also, as you'll see as I go through things, it does represent opportunities for us as well. So for starters, what I want to do is just to throw out a bit of a challenge to everybody to start thinking about this issue in a different way. And really, what I think that we need to start considering is when we have people not wanting to take jobs on, maybe it's not the problem of the person, but the problem is the job itself. Let me just give you a few examples. A number of years ago, I was the executive director of a not-for-profit, and we really relied on volunteers to do what we were doing. And one of the most powerful lessons I learned was one year when it was time to recruit new members for the board of directors. And that job had always been given to a particular board member. So her approach was to go out and have conversations with people. But what I learned was the conversations went along the lines of, we have an opening on the board. We really need people. We're having a hard time finding people. Do you think you could come and help us? And you won't be surprised to know that she didn't do that well or had a very difficult time finding people. So what I did is, without thinking too hard on this, I asked one of our other volunteers, who actually coincidentally had a sales background, to take on the challenge. And what she did is she went out and she talked to people about the opportunity that was available to them by coming to serve. So she's positioned the job in a completely different way. A couple of other examples. Over the years and being involved in Rotary, over and over again, I've heard stories and had conversations with people who've taken on positions, sometimes senior positions, club president, club secretary, district governor, who talk with relief about their year being over. In other words, the job is so big and so challenging that they're exhausted when they're done. And why would anybody else hearing about that want to take the job on? An extreme example, Rotary coordinator Louisa Horn, a number of years ago, had a conversation with a club president who broke down in tears because of the heavy workload that was put on her as club president. So the job being created in those examples is a job that people don't want to do. It's a job that is too big, it's too challenging, and so on. And one final example is the number of clubs, especially smaller clubs, who insist on having a long list of committees that they need members for, providing too many jobs and stretching their resources so they're not able to be as effective as possible. So what I would like you to do is just to be thinking about continuity from the perspective of how do we create opportunities for people, and how do we organize ourselves in a way that creates systems and processes that people want to be part of. So as I'm saying, thinking about opportunities, framing roles not as jobs, but as opportunities for people to meet new people, learn new skills, enhance their reputation, do some innovative things, serve their community, make a difference in their community, and so on. And then just one last point before I turn it over to Herb. What I think we really need to be thinking about in our organization and in our approaches is to give service and relationship building a real priority. We join Rotary for all kinds of reasons, but the reason people stay almost always is because they get hooked on service and they develop powerful relationships. So we need to be thinking about our get-togethers, our meetings, and the things that we do, not as meeting because we always meet every Monday or Wednesday for breakfast, lunch, supper, or whatever it is, but as opportunities for us to get together, to plan, decide, to do things, and to strengthen our relationships. Because fundamentally, service makes us feel good, but doing service with friends makes us feel even better. Herb.
Okay, and now for something completely different. Actually, not really, just sort of building on what Doug was talking about. Now, many of you who are on this call know that we've done a whole number of studies on growing clubs across North America. And we did it over the 3 years when we were Rotary coordinators. And there were two trends that came out very, very consistently year after year. One of the trends was growing clubs made continuity a priority. And this is just some data from one of those surveys, which showed that, one of the questions we asked was, well, do you have a president-elect more than 1 year in advance? And as you can see on this particular survey, and pretty much on all the surveys we looked at, 90% of the clubs that were growing, so these were the clubs that were growing on a consistent basis across North America, said, yes, we have a president-elect more than 1 year in advance. Next question, do you have a president-elect more than 2 years in advance? And I'm sorry, a president nominee more than 2 years in advance. And nearly 50% of these clubs said, yes, we have a president nominee more than 2 years in advance. So thinking about succession and trying to build multi-year efforts with respect to what we're doing in Rotary is very important. And then the final one, of course, was a club membership share. And when we looked at clubs that were growing, over 90%, well, I'd hope this was true, had a club membership share in place. So the next topic that we see very consistently is that growing clubs plan. They set goals and they track their goals. A similar survey that we did, we found over 80% of our clubs had a planning process for growth. And over 70% regularly updated their growth plans. And over nearly 85% of their clubs established annual membership goals. Now, the last year we did this survey, we didn't just rely on what these past presidents were telling us. We actually went into Rotary Club Central and said, well, are these clubs actually doing what they're saying they're doing and putting this into Rotary Club Central? And the answer was a resounding yes. When we compared these growing clubs to the average club in North America, these growing clubs were much more likely to be putting in goals and tracking them and achieving those goals relative to the average Rotary club. Now, when we think about building plans, and really what we want to encourage clubs to do is to build multi-year plans, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Rotary International has a program now where we're asking every club to build 3-year plans. But what I want to spend my next 5 or 10 minutes talking about are some how-tos, some how to build an effective club plan. So number one, keep it simple. I don't know about you, but when I see a plan for a club or a district that has 30 or 40 goals in it, I'm pretty much virtually certain that it's going to get put on the shelf. So we need to keep it simple. We need to identify where our priorities are. And especially if we're a small club, we need to identify a few key goals that we want to focus on. And of course, succession is critical. I would argue that maybe thinking about that as a first goal to make sure that we've got 2 or 3 years of leadership lined up so that they can work together to build a plan with some continuity in it, makes a lot of sense. And then finally, involve everyone. If it's my plan, not so sure how that's going to work in a volunteer organization. We really need to be thinking about how do we build plans where we're listening to our members and we're understanding what our members are doing. And probably we have a small leadership team that's focused on it. Now, I mentioned a minute ago that Rotary International is asking every club in the world to look at building 3-year plans and setting 3-year goals, but only a few 3-year goals. And these are the goals. So the first one is around planning and building a 3-year rolling action plan. Now you'll notice I put in parentheses here the 4 priorities of Rotary's action plan: increase your impact, expand our reach, enhance participant engagement, and increase our ability to adapt. So surprise, surprise, these goals line up with those 4 priorities of Rotary's action plan. So number 1, and this is the one that really needs to come first, is building an action plan for our clubs. And then the other goals that should come out of building our 3-year action plan are membership. How many active members are we going to have at the end of the Rotary year for each year for the next 3 years? And then around service, members involved in service projects. Now, we know that engagement is key for retaining our members. And one of the best ways, and Doug kind of alluded to this already, of getting our members, of getting our members engaged in our club is through service projects. So members involved in service projects is another key goal. And then the 4th one is around giving to the Rotary Foundation. And this is around increasing our impact. Another statistic that we saw when we looked at these growing club surveys was that clubs that are growing are more likely to be involved with Rotary Foundation grants. And of course, the key for having Rotary Foundation grants is that we need to give to the Rotary Foundation, since we are the primary source of the money that comes back to us in Rotary grants. So there's 3 sub areas under here: annual fund, Polio Plus, and the endowment. And the endowment is a new focus area that Rotary is focused on, and we're working hard to build our endowment so that we have money that gives back year after year in perpetuity. So when we talk about 3-year goals, well, why? Why do we want to focus on 3-year goals? For many, many, many years, we've been focused on 1-year goals. We're going to be the president of our club, and we're going to focus on what are our goals for next year. Well, what we've seen with this, especially around membership, is sometimes what we'll see is a yo-yo effect. We'll see a 1 year where a club will do really well with membership, and then the next year that membership might evaporate. And maybe, and I think we all know that membership growth is more than a 1-year process. It's something that we need to be thinking about year after year. And of course, our other projects as well we need to think about more than 1 year. And if we can build a leadership team and have our president-elect, and our president nominee working together on a plan, our odds of continuing a long-term sustained growth increase dramatically. It's also not too long. When we think about 5-year plans, well, it's hard to imagine where, I mean, I know where I'd love to see where my club is in 5 years, but it's a lot easier to see it in 3 years. So a 3-year goal offers us flexibility and forward thinking. So what are some steps in building a plan for your club? Well, number one is we need to get buy-in. We need to get buy-in first from our leadership and then from our members. So we want to talk with our club members and involve them right from the beginning in what we're doing. Now, if we've got some experienced planners in our club, somebody maybe who's involved and experienced with building strategic plans, we probably want to ask them to be on our core team. Take your time. This is probably something that we should do over a period of months, and get feedback and make adjustments and build it over time. Step 2 or step 3 on here is well, as Doug has said, solicit feedback. I like to just say, ask your members. Ask your members through surveys, and then possibly ask your community as well. And if you're a small club and asking your community is not feasible, well, there are other organizations in your community that are doing community assessments. You can learn from those. So we need to ask our members, we need to ask our communities. Rotary International has a number of club surveys that you can use for your club. Doug and I have built another club survey, if you're interested in that, which is a little more aligned with Rotary's action plan. Or you can build your own. So think about how you might want to do that for surveying. Step 4, analyze the results. Have a small core team that works together to do an analysis of what you've learned from your club assessment and your community assessment. And if you can, you use an outside facilitator. It's really hard to facilitate a session when we have a stake in it. So think about that as well. Step 5, identify actions and set goals. And don't just set any goals, set SMART goals. Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. And also break down those goals into actionable steps that can happen with your club. And then finally, implement and follow up. Now, what we've seen that's very effective is as you're going through this process, if your whole club isn't involved, and it probably is to some extent, but maybe not on the analysis or the identifying actions, keep them in the loop. keep them in the loop so that they're aware of what you're doing and get their feedback. We will be much more successful if we do. So I believe that that's it. So
That's
Doug, back to
you.
you.
Okay. So you might be surprised that we're taking the time to talk about planning, and the more that Herb and I have worked together, the more we've realized and seen a real direct relationship between clubs that are growing and having success and their planning. But what is really important is that you need to do it in a way that works for you and it works for your club. It's possible that you can end up with a plan that's 30 pages long and highly detailed if you have the leadership and the commitment and a team of people to do it. And that can be successful. But it's equally possible that you will have a plan that's 1 page long with 5 or 6 key points, and that can be successful as well. The key is to take the time to put it together, to talk to people, and have something that you can build enthusiasm about working towards. The other important thing that happens with that, though, is the process of building the plan with people gives everybody an opportunity to see themselves as part of the plan. And if they see themselves as part of the plan, they're far more likely to want to take on the goals and the challenges and the jobs that you have available. And it'll be far more likely that you will have less and less of a problem with continuity and succession. So you don't need to try to do everything. Too many clubs have too many things that they're trying to do. It's really important to identify what your priorities, what is it that most turns your club's crank? What is the big impact that you want to have in your community? There's that old cliche, we can do anything we want to do, we just can't do everything, and that's really true. So focus, find your culture, find your identity, and take a team approach, bringing everybody in. Another thing to be thinking about is to look at how you organize your jobs and question whether they need to be that way. We have heard stories of where, for example, club presidents clubs have divided the president's year in a number of ways, with a couple of people sharing the job, with one person taking it for 1 quarter, another person the next quarter, and so on. So you shrink the job, make it more attractive to other people, and you're showing other people that there are a number of different ways of doing it. I remember talking to the leader of a club last year where that club had almost got to the point of deciding to hand in their charter. And they held a meeting, a come to Jesus meeting, so to speak, where they sat down and they talked frankly about who they are and what they're doing and what they wanted to accomplish. The end of that was a process where they began to establish realistic goals for themselves, and they changed the way they thought about their leadership. And instead of having a club president, they decided to have a captain because they thought that described the role in a different way. Technically, that leader is, as far as our eyes concerned, a president, but in the club's mind, he or she is a captain. Another example, Louisa Horn, when she was quote unquote district governor, she described herself as team leader. Again, technically she was district governor, but as the title suggests, she took a different approach, a different way of looking at things. So just be creative, and don't be afraid to be creative, to be innovative, to try new things. The new things may not work. That's fine. Try something else. The point is to make an effort to be continuing to move forward. And the last point here is to match people with their skills and their interests, but don't assume that just because she's an accountant professionally, that automatically means that she's going to want to be your treasurer. Don't make the mistake of assuming that would be her interest. ask people what turns their crank, and move ahead from there. And so with that, I will say thank you and stop sharing and invite you to comment, question, opinionate. Tell us what you think.
Actually, I want to tell a little story, and then we can go to ask questions. I want to tell you a little story about our club, Allentown West. 2 years ago, two or 3 years ago, we could not find a president-elect. Nobody, we have 55 members in our club. Nobody wanted to be our president-elect. So what we did was 3 of us took on the job together, and I was one of the 3. And our main goal during that year, we agreed, was to simplify what was the role of the president. So it wasn't so daunting. And the first thing we did, which might be controversial depending on the culture of your club, well, we cut our number of meetings in half. We stopped meeting every week. And there were a small group of people in our club that were not happy with us for reducing the meetings to twice a month. But now we're all used to it. We made it a very high priority to identify the next 3 presidents of the club after us. And while it took a little while to do that, once people saw that we were trying to make the job more manageable, we were able to put in place the next 3 presidents for our club. And I'm happy to say on year 2, which just, we're in year 2 of this now. We have our president, and he's the first of the 3, right? We've identified the president that's going to come 3 years from now. So yes, it can be done. But it was really, it took 3 of us to work together, 3 people who were experienced in project management and thinking about that project. So that's just a personal story.
It's a great example, Herb. I see Sue has her hand raised.
Hi, yeah, I'm Sue Pagini from District 7910 in Central Massachusetts. I wanted to see if you had any thoughts about the visioning process. This has been a fairly successful effort in our district, and I'm going to be president of my club next year, and I'm trying to get my club to do visioning. It seems like that process encompasses a lot of what you were talking about. And do you have experience with it? And then do you think it achieves these goals that you've been talking about tonight? And works for clubs?
Yes to both. Yes, experience, and yes, it can work. Emphasize on the can. It depends on who's doing it. There's skills, their experience, and the extent to which it's adapted to focus on the uniqueness of each club. But generally, anything like that is bringing people together to think about who they are, what they're doing, and where they want to go is an excellent idea. So fully support it.
And there might be people on this call with lots of experience with visioning. I know that there are several districts in our 2 zones with lots of experience, but yes, that is one way to do it. That's absolutely one way to do it.
This is Don Sovey from District 6360. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
We've been working on visioning for a couple of years, and we start with visioning and we turn it into an actual strategic plan, and we produce written documents at the end. We're working on 3 right at the moment, and we're going to schedule more next year. But if I could share a document, it'll give you an idea on how we've done this. So this was a club, and they in Michigan, and they said it's fine to show this as an example to other clubs. So we do our initial work in looking at the impact, the reach, engagement, and adapt. And that's the first meeting. We have a series of 3 meetings. The second meeting, we develop action steps, and that's later in this document. Up at the top of this document, the club identified its mission statement. It really starts with the Rotary International mission and vision, and then they modify it to their own. And then our final meeting, we asked them to tell us what are the great things about this club in 2027. So this particular club came up with a lot of goals. I wanted to have fewer goals, but under impact, they had 2 goals: collaborate and youth service. Under reach, they had 2: partner with service organizations and membership growth. Engagement, get the young professional members to lead and adapt a more engaging and diverse program speakers. So down below, then in our third meeting, we developed the action steps. It looks like a lot. On the back, we insist that it be a 2-page document. So I'm going to enlarge this a little bit, see if we can see it bigger. On the first one, increase our impact. These are the SMART goals that we developed. And you can see they're 2 big goals, but then they broke it down into how are they going to get it done? And we have the project and then when it has to be done off on the far right. So they identify this in the second meeting, this level of detail, and then we're insistent upon them identifying who the leader is, who's going to be responsible for getting it. So that's what you see on the left, who's going to get it done. So we do that for all of the 4 levels. It's on the back of the plan, and so far it's worked. This started with a team of district governors that started to put this structure together, and then we took it a little further and turned it into a strategic plan. The first meetings we call visioning, and then we turn it into a strategic plan, a written document with a mission and vision. So that's what we've done in 6360.
All right, that's a great example. I love the fact that it's 2 pages. I love the fact that you force people to make choices and decisions. And I appreciate your comment about they insisted on having more goals than you wanted. But the important point there is that was their choice and their decision to do it that way. So a great example. I noticed in chat, Paul, you asked for notes from the presentation. The only thing that we have is the slides. Herb and I have been talking to each other for so many years. We know what we're thinking and what we're going to do first thing in the morning. So the slides, Margie, you can make them available to people.
I
But
will,
we don't have any speaker notes.
but we will be, this is being recorded and it will be then transcribed and then sent out to everyone and available on the zone website for everyone to click on and download.
I think we might be able to offer a little more. Donald, maybe we could take your example and put that one up. That's a really great example of
That's a good idea.
of an action plan. I personally call them action plans. I know they're strategic plans, but since Rotary has named it an action plan, I tend to call it an action plan. I also have a lot of other support in documents. If you would want some different types of club assessments and things like that, which we might be able to put up as well. We just did this at Mid-Atlantic Pels a little more than a week ago, and we put together a whole series of supporting tools, if you will, that people can use to build a three-year action plan.
Lauren, I see your hand.
Yeah, Doug, Herb, but I was just saying, we're just talking about trying to attract a younger demographic. And the young professionals group that I just saw in Donald's presentation in the action plans is critical for all of us. And one thing we're learning is that you need to build the young generation, young professionals in cohorts or as satellite clubs of clubs, because they may want to do things very differently. They do things much quicker, much faster. They just get things done. And so I really do encourage us to think about our club structure, and that sometimes if we're just a breakfast or lunch or an evening club meeting, that you might want to have one of these satellite clubs focused on young generations.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks, Lauren.
Sue, I see your hand again.
Yep, me again. Sorry. Can't help but talk.
All right.
One thing I've found over the years, this is my third time around as president for two different clubs. And one thing, and I was an assistant governor for a little while. One thing I really found helpful was the goals setting feature in Rotary.org and Club Central. It's kind of kludgy to get to and a little kludgy to learn and use. But what I love about it is you can see how things change over the years. And, you compare your goals like membership. That's an easy count, right? See how they go up and down. And I find that it helps me visualize what is realistic and what is possible. Like, yeah, I'd love to have 20 more members, but history tells me we're lucky to go up by 2 or 3. Okay, maybe I'll go for 4, but it helps me set realistic goals and track them and show them to club members. So if others here don't use that, I really recommend it. There's all kinds of goals you can set, and I find it to be really helpful.
Yeah, no, I agreed. And as an aside, as a past district governor 5 years ago, one of the things that I did notice was when club presidents put in their membership goals, they were wildly optimistic. And 5 to 10% is a good set of goal. If you think you're going to grow more than 5 to 10%, you need to kind of do something like what Lauren was just talking about, was create an alternate experience. If you don't create an alternate experience, 5 to 10% is a good goal for membership growth.
Thank you. Kathy, your note in chat, the template is the RI's Calgary template for the convention in June in Calgary, and I took that and I tweaked it for this presentation. So all the pretty images are for Calgary. Hopefully, I won't get in trouble for adapting it. I also wanted to make a quick point about and just looking at Donald's example, which is a really good one. One of the key things is, the hard part really is not putting the plan together. The hard part is making sure you do it. And as part of the whole process, you really need to have the discipline to get yourselves in the habit of following through. Some of the clubs that have been really successful have actually taken their plan, and made that their agenda for meetings. So as a way of just checking off, have we been doing what we've been doing? What are we doing with this one? Did we do it this month, et cetera? So put the plan together and then do it.
Yeah, actually, I was just at a club last Wednesday. They had asked me to come to talk to them about those 3-year goals, and they had already built their multi-year plan, and it was basically what you just said, Doug. It was putting something in place so that at least once a month or twice a month, they're talking about, here are our goals and here are how we're doing against them. And I'm happy to say that club 3 or 4 years ago had low 20s, maybe 21, 22 members. They're up to 35, 36 members now.
I see your question, Chris. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I know that people are talking about it, but polio seems to be taking a long time to get dealt with too. So
yeah, I don't know the answer to that one.
Sorry, the RI is pitching a large project. So they have a large scale program, $6 million. And they do this funding every year to see which ones are going to stick longer term. So every club or every district can put in a recommendation for a large impactful sort of project. We've always picked mostly, I think it was in Egypt, cervical cancer one. There's one and Mozambique was on malaria. So there's very large scale projects that have partnerships. And so that's how they're moving forward, but they're not taking anything new on until after polio is eradicated.
I'd like to say thank you to Doug and Herb for the presentation and for answering questions and for always continuing to be here for us, especially with the data. We appreciate it.
Night, everybody.
Right.
Thank you, everyone.